problem number. Well, let me start with a little framing first. And I am primarily on the seller's side in this. I coach small business owners who are interested in preparing for sales. So I know that a number of your listeners are on the buy side, so some of this is going to run counter to that, but I'm comfortable with that. I'm unapologetically small business. What I mean by that is, if you look at the numbers, 95% of small business owners that exist will never see more than $5 million a year in revenue. Most substantially less than that. And so that is
I think the number's like only 7% get to $1 million.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, when you look at how it climbs up from there. So that is the marketplace. It's defined by that. And so I like to keep that in mind when we talk about mergers and acquisition, but yet you and I both know that most mergers and acquisitions content is what I call M&A porn. It is it's the I sold my business for $100 million on Tuesday, and you can do it too. I bought 57 businesses last month. Let me tell you how. And I get the clickbait stuff of that, and I don't have a problem with that. But that is the majority of the content. We're going to hear exponentially more about Google's acquisition than we are about the average sale that might impact a small business owner. And it skews how we think.
I had one of those individuals in my sphere network that said I did 105 acquisitions. And for crying out loud, I just couldn't find any company that wrote like a tombstone or a press release or anything about this. Like, wow, how are you doing this? What kind of companies are these? What is it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And no, don't get me started. So again, there's the basic framing. And so when we talk about, my problems with acquisition entrepreneurs, let's start here. And it's about the messaging and it's about the content. And it's around the fact that too many speak like this is how a lot of deals get done. I think a false buyer narrative gets created. What do I mean by that? Yeah. And we don't have to pick on acquisition entrepreneurs. Let's talk about private equity for a second. I can show you article after article about how private equity is up 17% this year. And that's really exciting, right? But then we look at the deal count and we realize that accounts for 8,000 purchases over the entire country.
Quadrillions of equity.
Yeah, exactly.
Black powder ready to impact.
Yeah, that's just it, John. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. And nobody should care about it, because the majority of small business owners are never going to pass even the initial sniff test of private equity. A small deal for private equity is larger than most small business owners will ever get to. So it's like, why do we care? Why are we told we're supposed to care? But that is the majority of the content. We can talk about family offices or venture capital or any of these other things, and they're just minuscule portions. What does get a deal done? Who is the buyer? Most small businesses that sell successfully are going to sell to another individual who is going to come and work full-time in the business that they purchase. Now, that might not be as sexy as private equity, but that's how deals get done. And so you'd better be building a business that's going to be attractive to your most likely buyer if you actually want to exit. Which means you'd better go ahead.
Well, but that looks exactly like you.
Yeah,
somewhat
right.
like you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you go, well, why is that important? Well, what would I need if I was going to buy a business? Well, I'd need to earn an income, and I'd need to service the debt I incurred to buy the business, right? I'd have to do at least those two things. Well, if I can't do those two things when I buy a business, I can't buy the business. But yet we're talking about private equity. We're talking about these other issues. So my concern number one, problem number one, is that the content that's out there around this space speaks too loudly to how important this this acquisition entrepreneurship
makes it seem like the noise makes it seem like there's more happening than actually is. And I got to tell you, I spent time in the VC world. I've raised money for VC companies. It does not happen as frequently as you think. Less than like 1% of the businesses get funded by a venture capital firm. It is so rare.
It is extremely rare, but the noise is so loud, and the people in that space want it to be loud, right? Because private equity wants people chasing their money. They want deal flow. They want to see opportunities. They don't talk about the fact that I have a conversation with a private equity guy who tells me my role is to look at 3 to 5 deals a week, and I'll be lucky if we'll do one of those deals a year. And you think, how do that number might work for them and help them meet their goals, but it doesn't inform, educate, or help the average small business owner. So that's problem number one. Let me hit me.
Let me bring up another a point here. Anecdotal point was that I came across this also when I had a student looking at a veterinarian business in Texas, and we talked to the broker, and we asked him, can we have the balance sheet? And he goes, well, I've done over 300 deals, and, I've never had anybody ask for a balance sheet. And it's like, well, who's buying these businesses then? And he goes, other veterinarian. Sure. I go, okay, all right. It's not a financial buyer. It's another veterinarian that's going to come in, graduate from veterinarian school, buy it, work 10 years, 15 hours a day, and then sell it to the next veterinarian.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's like, if I'm a buyer and I look, it's a great example. If I look at that, I'm like, oh, well, normal is this, but that's not the story they tell, right? The messaging, the content, I think it misinforms the majority of the audience. And I have a problem with that. So
yeah.